So Maya, Helen, do you want to talk about schools? And the question, I'll just throw it wide open. What are the problems? What do we need to do? Where do we need to get to?
Explain why we took schools as a major focus at Sex Matters.
So when we started Sex Matters, we thought about sex matters in all of these different sectors of society, and schools was one of them. But it was just, it was just one place. And after about a year, we stopped and we thought, actually, schools is much more important. It's not just one place where sex matters. It matters particularly in schools, one, because you're protecting children, and children are uniquely vulnerable. Two, because children being convinced that they're born in the wrong body, those specific children are being harmed, as the Cass review has shown. But three, the other children are being brought up into this ideology of believing that sex doesn't matter. And those children are then going on to jobs or to university and into politics and into employment. And if we don't tackle the spread of that idea through schools, then anything that we do today in the other parts of society is going to be undone just by the demographic shift of more and more people being brought up with this ideology. So that's why we decided we were going to focus a lot more on schools, and we've really done it in England with the Department for Education, because they had this ongoing, they were developing guidance for schools, which they'd been doing since, I think, 2017. It's been passed around, and I know there's a separate one in Scotland and a separate one in Wales, but we focused on the one in England. And the Department for Education brought out guidance which we thought was pretty good before the election. We gave it 86%. It's a bit overcomplicated, but it's gone a long way from where the guidance was originally, which was if a child says that they are born in the wrong body, or if a boy says he's a girl or a girl says he's a boy, that the school should treat them as the opposite sex, and if the parents don't agree, they should view the parents as unsupportive, and if the child doesn't want to tell the parents, then the school should not tell them. I'm sure you know all of this. I know it's going on in Wales. It's going on all over the country. And the big point that we kept making to the Department for Education is whatever you think about what's best for that child, and the Cass review was very helpful in unpicking the idea that what is best for that child is always to affirm them. But the school's responsibility is for all the children. And there is no way that you can run a school safely and fairly while forgetting what sex any of the children are, and while confusing the adults and the children about what sex any of the children are. You can't explain what the rules are. You can't expect the children to follow the rules, and the rules are there to keep the children safe. So shifting the focus from thinking, these are very particular children that need to be treated in a completely different way, to thinking about the whole school and think about why do we collect data about a child's sex? Why do we record the information of a child's sex? Why do we use that information? Where do we treat boys and girls differently, and where do we treat them the same? And it's only lawful to treat boys and girls differently because there's a good reason. You're not allowed to say boys do woodwork and girls do sewing. But you are allowed to say, boys play rugby with boys and girls play rugby with girls. And there's no reason that a single child should move between those categories, because those rules are there to keep a child safe, to keep all the children safe. And so we think the guidance that came out in England was pretty good. We hope the next government will finalise it. But it was still overcomplicated, and there are going to be court cases. And what we think schools really need is a model policy. So most schools, particularly primary schools, they don't have a huge admin staff. They buy a lot of their policies off the shelf, HR, health and safety, because each school shouldn't have to make these things up. That's either given to them by the local authority, or they buy them in a package from a commercial service, or it's given to them by the government. And that's what we think should happen here, that schools should be given a model policy that says this is why you record sex, and this is why you shouldn't bend the rules for any child, and this is what you should do when you have a child who's troubled about their sex, and you protect their mental health, you look after them within the frameworks you already have about safeguarding, about children with medical issues, about children with behavioural issues, but you never treat a child as being not the sex that they are. And we think if the government was to come out with guidance like that and stand behind it when a case is taken against a school, that would be a powerful thing. And whether that happens in England or Scotland or Wales, if it happened in court, it would then have an impact all over the country.
I mean, we're pretty sure that there'll be a judicial review of whatever is brought, because, you know, there are people on the other side who want to take judicial reviews here as well. But it's also the point about clarity. You know, at the moment, there's no clarity. Schools think they're doing the right thing, or they're doing different things or whatever, but as soon as you make it clear, I mean, anyone who's done any quantum mechanics, you collapse the waveform, like it's either a wave or a particle, it can't be both. Sorry, that was shit. I wanted to say it, and I could see myself coming towards it, and I tried to stop myself, but I failed. I just mean the ambiguity. Once it's unambiguous, can this boy be allowed into the girls' changing rooms or not? It can't be, it can't be both. It can't be a bit. It can't be allowed to just stick a toe in, only on Tuesdays, whatever. And the same with the words, like where the government's got to, it seems to have got to this strange place where it's worked out you really can't let the boys into the girls' changing rooms or vice versa. You really can't let them play sport, vice versa. But you might have to pretend in your words that the boy is really a girl. Well, how are you to do that? I don't know, Louise, she's a lovely girl like all the other girls, but Louise is the special sort of girl who can't go into the girls' toilets. Why? My words, I can't say why, because the answer is because Louise is a boy. And if you can't say that, you can't get the rules going. So we think if you write it down, you're forced to see that you actually have to talk clearly as well. And then the other thing that we would say about schools is you can't get a gender recognition certificate under 18. So although I know that the gender recognition certificate is a tiny, tiny number of the kids or the adults or any of them who've been treated as if they're members of the opposite sex, you can explain to a head teacher, you're a primary school. There's literally not one child here who is legally ever for any purpose of the opposite sex. They're all really of their sex for all purposes, including all legal purposes. And then you can think of that closed system, and you can think about, are you destroying other people's rights? What about freedom of speech? What about the employment issues? And then when you fix that, well, it's all the same issues everywhere else as well. It's not, the GRC is not magic. I know it looks like it is in law at the moment, but the reason that you say the boys can't go into the girls' showers is the same reason you say the men can't go into the women's showers. And the paperwork doesn't change that.
I mean, just on the impact of there not being GRCs for people under 18, for children, is it does make quite a big difference in terms of how simple you can make a message for schools, because essentially what it means is that all children, the protected characteristic of gender reassignment does apply to children, but GRCs don't apply. So the pure form of the Equality Act, as it were, applies. So you can say all male children must be treated as male. They mustn't be treated less favourably than other male children because they have the protected characteristic of gender reassignment. All female children must be treated not less favourably than other female children because they have the protected characteristic. It's just the comparator and how that works again. So it does make it actually potentially quite a lot simpler to bring the message across from a legal perspective anyway.